Did you record the LP in the UK, or did you do it over in the States?
We did it all in London, all the tracks, yeah.
And you produced it yourself?
I did indeed, yeah. For my sins, but...
Terrible confession, I'm not aware of whether or not you have produced any of your previous LPs.
I have done a couple of them, yeah. And I've done a few co-productions with other people, like Alan O'Duffy and Roger Clover, but... in general, I like to do it myself, purely because you can call your own sessions, your own time. You know, with a lot of the producers I admire now, like Nick Lowe, I'd like to work with, Glyn Johns, Dave Edmonds. If you contact them, they can only give you X weeks in a certain month or whatever. And given our approach, it would be too confining. Added to the fact that I have fairly strict ideas about things, so I find it best if you get a good engineer who's prepared to kind of help you along the way, and that's what we've worked. I mean, to be honest, Alan O'Duffy, who did co-produced Top Priority and Photo Finish, helped on about half of this album or thereabouts, but then he went on to something else and I progressed with the project myself. But see, I'd like to work an 8-track or 16-track. That would suit me fine, because you'd record it in the afternoon, you'd overdub it after tea, and then you'd mix it the following day or something, get it over with.
I read a quote somewhere attributed to yourself that you read somewhere that the Eagles prefer to record in 16-track because they get a fuller sound, they get a wider band on the tape.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people argue about it. If you consider that 24-track or 16-track is 2-inch tape, and 16-track has twice the space of 1 track of 24, and people like David Lindley and Roy Cooder and all that have you know, kept that in mind, and that's what they go for. And I know we did a couple albums on 16-track, and it does seem fuller. I don't know whether it's imaginary or whatever, you know. But then you see, once you get into that department, it's like saying, can we get that kind of, you know, X kind of echo? And the engineer, particularly some of the newer guys, would say, oh, why don't you use this digital delay and we can punch in a sample of a small club room sound, for instance, or a big, huge theatre. But it always sounds, you know, we have used these effects, but quite often we go back to like tape echo and reverb, spring reverb, and even on some of these tracks on the album I use old copycat echoes myself, like real prehistoric now, but they just work. Watkins, yeah. And I use that on Lone Shark Blues, and I use it on Seems to Me. It's just that when you touch the guitar, every little movement of your hand, you know, affects the tape or the heads, and it's something you can't really do after when you're mixing. You can't create that percussive blues or rockabilly feel. So, but unfortunately, if you're a young engineer, what I'm saying tends to go against the state of the art. So you have to live with that, you know. But I'm
talking about engineers. As you're aware, Radio Clyde is recording tonight's performance for broadcast on the rock show, and I just wonder, does that add any complications to you as a performer? Does it make you more nervous, or does it not bother you now?
It does indeed. I mean, it's an extra tension, naturally enough, because you're playing to 2 audiences mentally, and you know, you're more cautious of buzzes and mistakes and broken strings and so on. By the same token, if it happens to be a good gig and it's well recorded, it's a double buzz then. And so the extra tension can be creative. What's difficult, if you're doing a live TV thing, that's very hard sometimes, because they have to use very bright lights. And you're trying to please the audience up front, and meanwhile you're trying to look into the camera or direct your act to the camera. That's harrowing, but I'd be delighted if tonight worked. It'd be great, because we do a few numbers that aren't on the album, tracks for the next album, so to speak, and that would be nice to get them on tape and see how they happen.
Do you have any opinion on? I mean, Rory Gallagher has been in the polls for best guitarist for perhaps more years than Rory Gallagher would care to remember. Do you have any opinion of any of the sort of newer guitarists that have come out in the last year or two?
Yeah, well, that's sure enough. A lot of the older guys are still playing pretty good. I mean, obviously, everyone's aware of Johnny Marr and The Edge and John McGill. I think I've got his name right. But all those guys tend to be more like textural players. They're more into cascades of sound and so on. And they're all fine players. But I mean, of the newer guitar players, I like the lead guitar player, so-called, of Los Lobos. He's a very fluid player. But most of the old guys will have to be shot because they're still alive and playing. It's some of them fade away, and the next thing like Albert Lee's still playing, Clapton's playing. I don't know who else. I mean, there's so many fine players around. But then you've got these great acoustic players like Martin Carthy and Bert Jansch, who are still outrageous. But there's some fine players, and the guitar player of the split up Stray Cats, Brian Seltzer, has got quite a facility. But Keith Richards still causing trouble on the guitar, I'm afraid. But we'll see.
Yeah. There's talk of a solo album from Keith.
So I believe, yeah, that'll be interesting. Well, I believe there's daggers in the back there with
Jagger.
Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe Keith's album might be better than. They need each other. It's sad, really, when you know.
It's unnecessary, I think.
It is indeed. But you know, it's very hard after 20 odd years to keep sort of friendly, you know. But well, Keith's album could be very interesting because he probably. I hope he doesn't attempt to make it a huge commercial success. He might actually make a very raunchy, down-home album.
That he doesn't care if it sells 1 million or if it sells 25,000.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, I don't think he'll be that worried about. I think in Mick's case, he wants to appear very relevant and very up to date, and he's more into dance songs, you know. Even though he's got great blues knowledge, of course. But the ideal situation is that halfway through the album that Keith makes, he'll call Jagger in, and it'll be like a great Stones album. That might be the solution, you know. So we'll see.
How extensive is this tour planned out? I mean, as we said, this is just the third night of the tour. The UK dates, I think I've got it down somewhere. There's about a dozen other nights or something you're going to do. But how extensive is it planned out for the rest of the year?
Well, yeah, well, it's about 10 days. You talk about tours, and I start thinking in terms of. No, I used to read all down through the date sheet and say, well, on the 28th of next month I'll be in Berlin. I try to forecast ahead. No, I don't. I just go day by day. No, after there's 10 days off after the tour, and then we start on the continent, Scandinavia, through Germany and to Switzerland, right through the middle of December, and then we do an Irish tour at Christmas time. First one in X years, and in the new year then we'll be doing a bunch of other countries, Spain, France, maybe go to America, so we'll be busy, you know. So 3 Weetabix a morning.
What about the next LP, Rory? You're not going to keep us waiting so long for the next one, are you?
No. I'd be more than happy to get this one done. We won't rush it, but we will get it done fast, and probably have it out in June or July. We already, as I was saying, have some tracks ready to go. We also have an instrumental which we hope to play tonight called The Loop. The Loop is an area, well, it's an overground railway system in Chicago. And being a great fan of Chicago blues, I always wanted to do. It sounds a bit corny when I'm saying it, but I mean it's a nice little instrumental. And we've got songs like let me see. But as you can imagine, with so much material left over, we'll re-record that or look at it again and see. But and also, if you stay out of the studio too long, you get nervous about it and you get claustrophobic when you go in. So I'm trying to get in. Added to the fact that we're re-releasing on CD and all the rest of it a lot of the older albums. So I'm going to remix some of those. Not all of them. I'm going to remix Jinx for a start and add a couple of tracks. And Photo Finish, Top Priority and Against the Grain are coming out.
On Chrysalis again, or on the new label?
On the new label, yeah. All being equal, so we'll see.
We'll look forward to that. We'll also look forward to tonight's performance, Rory. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing you again. Last time I saw you, of course, was at the Usher Hall in Edinburgh with Jack Bruce and Charlie Watts. So hopefully tonight will be as good, and we'll look forward to seeing Defender high up in the charts very soon.
Oh, please God, yeah. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Rory.
Cheers.